Think you know ancient history? Think again. Everything you learned in school was sanitized, edited, and carefully curated to protect your delicate sensibilities. The truth? Ancient civilizations were weirder, darker, and way more insane than any textbook ever admitted. We're talking human sacrifices for bad weather, wars over stolen hair, and medical procedures that make horror movies look tame. Today, we're counting down 36 shocking facts about ancient civilizations that historians conveniently forgot to mention. Buckle up. This is going to get dark, disturbing, and absolutely fascinating. Let's dive in. Number 1. Ancient humans practiced cannibalism regularly. Let's start with the darkest truth. Evidence of prehistoric and ancient cannibalism is everywhere. Neanderthals did it. Early Homo sapiens did it. Aztecs, Mayans, Fijians, Anasazi, ancient Europeans, nearly every culture has archaeological evidence of eating other humans. Sometimes ritual, sometimes survival, sometimes warfare. Bones show cut marks from butchering, intentional breaking for marrow extraction, and cooking marks. The Donner Party wasn't an anomaly. It was part of a long human tradition. Cannibalism was so common that our bodies evolved a prion disease, kuru, specifically from eating human brains. The lesson? Humans have always been the scariest thing on the planet. Number 2. Ancient civilizations built on slavery. Rome, Greece, Egypt, Persia, every great ancient civilization was built on massive slavery. We're not talking dozens, we're talking millions. In Rome, slaves made up 30–40% of the population. They built the Colosseum, the aqueducts, the roads, all those achievements we admire. In Greece, democracy only worked because slaves did all the labor, freeing citizens to debate philosophy. Egyptian pyramids employed some paid workers, but also vast numbers of enslaved and coerced laborers. Slavery wasn't a side note. It was the economic foundation. The harsh truth? Nearly every ancient wonder was built on stolen lives. Number 3. Medieval medicine blamed everything on imbalanced humors. Ancient and medieval doctors believed the body contained 4 humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Literally everything wrong with you was because these fluids were imbalanced. Depressed? Too much black bile. Angry? Too much yellow bile. Sick? Definitely a humor problem. The cure was always the same: bloodletting, purging, vomiting, or enemas. Doctors would drain pints of blood from already dying patients. This medicine persisted for over 2,000 years. George Washington probably died because doctors drained 40% of his blood trying to cure a throat infection. Takeaway? Medical science killed more people than it saved. Number 4. Ancient Greeks voted to exile citizens for being too popular. Athens invented ostracism, democracy's weirdest feature. Once a year, citizens could vote to banish someone for a decade. No trial, no appeal. Just write a name on a pottery shard, and if enough people agree, bye-bye. The catch? It was usually used against successful people who might become tyrants. Too charismatic? Exiled. Too rich? Exiled? Won too many military victories? Also exiled. Even Themistocles, who saved Greece from Persia, got ostracized. The message was clear: don't stand out too much, or your own democracy will kick you out. The moral? Ancient Greek democracy punished excellence as often as it rewarded it. Number 5. Aztecs believed the sun needed human blood. Aztec cosmology was terrifying. They believed the sun fought darkness every night, and without human blood, it would fail to rise. So they sacrificed thousands, maybe tens of thousands annually to keep the universe functioning. This wasn't optional or controversial. It was the foundation of their civilization. Priests would cut out beating hearts and offer them to the sun god Huitzilopochtli. The pressure to constantly acquire sacrificial victims drove endless wars. Aztec society literally ran on industrial-scale human sacrifice. When Cortés arrived, local tribes helped him overthrow the Aztecs, partly to end the tribute of victims. Lesson: their religion required genocide as maintenance. Number 6. Ancient Romans paid to watch public executions. Gladiatorial games get all the attention, but the intermission entertainment was even darker. Between fights, condemned criminals would be executed in elaborate, theatrical ways. They'd reenact myths where the hero dies, burned alive as Hercules, torn apart by animals as Orpheus, crucified as Prometheus with an eagle eating their liver. Romans would eat snacks and place bets on how long victims would last. Children attended these spectacles. It wasn't hidden or shameful. It was prime entertainment. Tickets were expensive. The takeaway? Romans normalized violence into a billion-dollar industry. Number 7. Ancient Egyptians practiced brother-sister marriage. We're not just talking pharaohs here. Regular Egyptians did this too. In Roman-era Egypt, up to 20% of marriages in some regions were between full siblings. Census records from the period explicitly list couples as brother and husband or sister and wife. The genetic consequences showed up in skeletal remains, higher rates of birth defects and lower life expectancy. But cultural and economic pressures made it common, keeping property in the family, maintaining social status, religious beliefs about purity. It wasn't until Christianity spread that the practice declined. Moral, even commoners thought keeping bloodlines pure was worth the risk. Number 8. Vikings used seagull skin for condoms. Viking contraception was creative. They'd carefully skin seagulls, clean the skin, soften it, and fashion it into condoms. Animal intestines and fish bladders were also popular choices across cultures. The effectiveness was questionable, but at least they tried. Imagine having to explain to your partner that you're wearing a seagull, or hunting down a seagull specifically for this purpose. Historical records suggest these were reusable. Yes, washable bird skin condoms. The medieval period wasn't much better, but at least by then they'd switched to sheep intestines. Lesson: protection has always been important, no matter how ridiculous. Number 9. Ancient Mayans drilled holes in their teeth. Mayans were masters of dentistry, unfortunately for them. They'd drill holes into perfectly healthy teeth and inlay them with jade, obsidian, or pyrite as decoration. No anesthesia. Just sit still while someone grinds a hole through your enamel with a stone drill. The process often exposed the pulp, causing infections and excruciating pain. But hey, you'd have sparkly teeth. Archaeologists have found Mayan skulls with elaborate dental work that must have taken hours of agony. It was a status symbol. The more decorations, the wealthier you were. Takeaway: ancient beauty standards required a pain tolerance we can't imagine. Number 10. Romans fed Christians to lions for entertainment. We've all heard about Christians and lions, but the reality was worse than Sunday school tales. Romans didn't just execute Christians, they made it a spectacle. Victims would be dressed in animal skins and released into the arena with starved lions, bears, or dogs. Sometimes they'd be tied to stakes and set on fire as living torches to light up evening games. Thousands attended these events, cheering while people were torn apart. Emperor Nero turned this into such popular entertainment that it lasted for centuries. The moral? Roman crowds treated human death like halftime entertainment. Number 11. Ancient Assyrians practiced forced deportation. The Assyrians perfected ethnic cleansing millennia before the term existed. After conquering a region, they'd forcibly relocate entire populations hundreds of miles away. Not just armies, everyone. Men, women, children, elderly. They'd march them across deserts with minimal food or water. The goal was to prevent rebellions by destroying cultural identity. Millions were displaced. When Babylon fell, over 200,000 people were deported. The lucky ones became slaves. The unlucky ones died on the march. This wasn't spontaneous cruelty, it was official policy, documented in royal inscriptions. The lesson? Assyria was history's first master of systematic displacement. Number 12. Ancient Greeks exercised naked and covered in oil. Greek athletes trained and competed completely naked, covered in olive oil. The oil was to protect their skin, supposedly, but it also made them slippery and shiny. After exercise, they'd scrape off the oil, sweat, dirt mixture with a curved tool called a strigil. Here's where it gets weird. That scraped-off gunk was collected and sold as medicine. Romans would buy athlete sweat oil as a cure for various ailments. Gladiator sweat was premium quality. So if you're jealous of ancient civilizations, remember they marketed athlete BO as healthcare. Moral: the wellness industry has always been a scam. Number 13. Carthaginians sacrificed babies to Baal. For centuries, historians debated whether Carthaginians really burned babies alive. Then archaeologists found the Tophet, a massive children's cemetery filled with cremated infant remains. Thousands of urns containing tiny bones, some marked with inscriptions to the god Baal. Ancient texts describe parents standing stone-faced while their babies burned, believing tears would invalidate the sacrifice. The youngest victims were just weeks old. Roman propaganda exaggerated it, but the core horror was real. Carthage did sacrifice children to their gods. Lesson: sometimes the ancient accounts aren't exaggerating. Number 14. Ancient Egyptians removed brains through the nose. Egyptian embalmers perfected mummification, but their brain removal technique was horrifying. They'd insert a long hook up through the nostrils, scramble the brain into chunks, and pull it out piece by piece through the nose. Sometimes they'd just liquefy it and let it drain out. Why? Egyptians believed the brain was useless. The heart was where intelligence lived. So they threw the brain away while carefully preserving every other organ. Millions of mummies exist with intact hearts and no brains. The takeaway? Ancient Egypt's best minds literally didn't believe in the brain. Number 15. Vikings made enemies carve eagles into their own backs. The blood eagle was the most brutal execution in Viking history. Victims would be tied face down and their ribs would be severed from the spine with an axe. Then the executioner would pull the ribs outward, creating a wing shape, and pull out the lungs. Some accounts say salt would be rubbed into the wounds. The victim would be alive for most of this. It was supposedly reserved for blood feuds and oath breakers. Some historians think it's just legend, but sagas describe it in graphic detail. The moral? Don't break oaths with Vikings. Number 16. Aztecs played ball games where losers died. The Mesoamerican ball game wasn't just sport. It was ritual sacrifice with a rubber ball. Players would try to get the ball through stone hoops using only their hips, elbows, and knees. Sounds fun, right? Except the losing team, or sometimes the winning team, historians still debate, would be sacrificed to the gods afterward. Their captain would be decapitated and their skull added to the rack. Archaeological evidence shows ball courts next to sacrificial altars. Imagine stepping onto the court knowing one wrong move means your heart is on a stone. Lesson learned? Ancient sports had serious stakes. Number 17. Ancient Chinese executed people by 1,000 cuts. The Chinese torture method called lingqi, or death by 1,000 cuts, was exactly what it sounds like. Executioners would slowly slice off pieces of the victim's body over hours or even days. The goal was to keep them alive as long as possible while causing maximum pain. It was reserved for the worst crimes: treason, mass murder, and patricide. Photos exist from the early 1900s, showing actual executions. The victim's face is frozen in agony. This practice continued until 1905, when it was finally banned. The moral? Some punishments were designed to make death a mercy. Number 18. Ancient Romans kept urine collectors on street corners. Romans were practical people with disgusting solutions. Public urinals weren't just toilets, they were businesses. People would urinate into large jars on street corners, and workers would collect it for various industries. Laundries used it to clean clothes. Tanners used it to soften leather. Dentists used it for whitening teeth. It was so valuable that Emperor Vespasian taxed it, leading to the phrase, "money doesn't stink." When his son complained, Vespasian allegedly held up a gold coin from urine taxes and asked if it smelled. The takeaway? Romans literally built an economy on piss. Number 19. Mayans shaped babies' heads into cones. Mayans believed elongated skulls were beautiful and noble. So they'd strap boards to newborns' heads for months, literally reshaping their soft skulls into alien-looking cones. It didn't affect brain function, surprisingly, but it permanently deformed the skull. The more dramatic the elongation, the higher your social status. Archaeologists regularly find these cone-headed skeletons in Mayan tombs. It's so common that ancient alien theorists actually thought these were extraterrestrials. Nope. Just humans willingly deforming their children's heads for fashion. Lesson? Human beauty standards have always been insane. Number 20. Ancient Greeks thought women's wombs wandered around. Greek physicians believed women's uteruses could literally detach and wander around the body, causing hysteria. Feeling anxious? Your womb probably traveled to your chest. Having a headache? Womb's in your brain now. The cure was to either lure it back with pleasant smells near the vagina or drive it away from the head with foul odors at the nose. This wasn't fringe medicine. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, taught this nonsense. It influenced Western medicine for over 2,000 years. The moral? The foundation of medical science was built on wandering uterus theory. Number 21. Vikings shared a communal bowl for face washing. Viking hygiene rituals were communal. Every morning, a bowl of water would be passed around the longhouse. Each person would wash their face and hair in it, then spit in it, blow their nose into it, and pass it along. By the time it reaches the last person, you're basically washing your face in everyone else's snot and spit. Arab traveler Ahmad ibn Fadlan witnessed this and was absolutely horrified. He described Vikings as the filthiest of God's creatures. Yet Vikings considered themselves clean because they bathed once a week. Takeaway? Never trust historical reputations about hygiene. Number 22. Ancient Egyptians were obsessed with poop. Egyptian medicine had a disturbing focus on feces. They used it in treatments for everything: eye infections, burns, splinters, even wrinkles. Crocodile dung, pelican dung, fly dung, you name it, they prescribed it. One cure for blindness involved bat droppings mixed with honey applied directly to the eyes. Spoiler: this definitely caused more blindness than it cured. But Egyptian doctors were considered the best in the ancient world. Imagine traveling hundreds of miles to see a renowned physician and he prescribes literal crap. The moral? Ancient medicine was basically guessing with confidence and poop. Number 23. Ancient Assyrians invented psychological warfare. The Assyrians didn't just conquer, they terrorized. They'd impale entire populations on stakes outside city walls, skin nobles alive, and pile skulls into pyramids as warnings. They documented these atrocities in official records, complete with illustrations. Why? To make enemies surrender without fighting. It worked. Cities would open their gates rather than face Assyrian wrath. One king, Ashurnasirpal II, bragged about burning children alive and cutting off people's hands, noses, and ears. This wasn't rage, it was calculated horror as policy. Lesson learned? The Assyrians wrote the book on nightmare fuel. Number 24. Aztecs flayed people and wore their skin. During the festival of Siptotec, the flayed god, Aztec priests would sacrifice victims by removing their hearts. But that was just the start. They'd then carefully flay the entire corpse, and priests would wear the skin for 20 days as it rotted on their bodies. This symbolized renewal and rebirth, old skin shedding for new. The smell must have been indescribable. Witnesses described the skin turning yellow and falling apart in chunks. Still, priests would dance in public wearing human suits. The moral? Aztec religious festivals make Halloween look like kindergarten. Number 25. Ancient Persians made decisions drunk and sober. According to Herodotus, the Persians had a bizarre decision-making process. They'd debate important matters twice, once while drunk, once while sober. If they agreed on something in both states, they'd proceed. The logic? Alcohol reveals true feelings, while sobriety ensures practicality. It actually makes a weird kind of sense. But imagine explaining to your king that you need to get hammered before invading Greece. Then again, maybe that's why they kept losing to Alexander. Lesson? Persian board meetings must have been legendary. Number 26. Romans made gladiators drink blood. After gladiatorial games, Romans would rush into the arena with cups to collect fresh gladiator blood. Why? They believed drinking it would cure epilepsy and other diseases. Women would even mix it into cosmetics for vitality. Gladiator sweat was also bottled and sold as an aphrodisiac. Imagine, you're a trained warrior, you just survived mortal combat, and now spectators are literally drinking your bodily fluids. And we think modern celebrity worship is weird. The takeaway? Romans turned human suffering into a wellness brand. Number 27. Egyptian pharaohs married their siblings. Royal incest wasn't just a Game of Thrones thing. Egyptian pharaohs routinely married their sisters, half-sisters, and sometimes even their daughters to keep the bloodline pure. Tutankhamun's parents were full siblings, which probably explains his clubfoot, cleft palate, and early death at 19. Cleopatra VII was the product of several generations of sibling marriages. The genetic consequences were catastrophic. Stillbirths, deformities, and dynasties that literally died out from inbreeding. But hey, at least they kept it in the family. Moral? Royal blood stays pure by becoming poison. Number 28. Incas sacrificed children on mountaintops. The Inca practice of capicocha was truly chilling. They'd select beautiful children, sometimes as young as 6, and prepare them for months with special diets and ceremonies. Then they'd march them to freezing mountaintops, sometimes over 20,000 feet high, drug them with coca and alcohol, and leave them to freeze to death as offerings to the gods. Archaeologists have found these mummies perfectly preserved by ice, still wearing their ceremonial clothes. The children's faces show they were alive when the cold killed them. The lesson: being chosen by the gods was not the honor they made it sound. Number 29. Ancient Greeks practiced infanticide casually. In ancient Greece, fathers had the legal right to expose unwanted newborns, basically leaving them outside to die. Too many daughters? Expose them. Can't afford another mouth? Expose them. Wrong gender? You guessed it. Babies were left on hillsides or trash heaps, where they'd either die of exposure or be picked up by slavers. Philosophers like Aristotle even defended the practice as population control. It was so common that it's barely mentioned in historical texts. Just another Tuesday in Athens. Moral of the story: democracy and human rights didn't exactly arrive together. Number 30. Viking berserkers might have been tripping on shrooms. Viking berserkers were legendary warriors who fought in trance-like fury, seemingly immune to pain. They'd bite their shields, howl like animals, and charge into battle half-naked. Modern theories suggest they might have been high on henbane, magic mushrooms, or fly agaric, all hallucinogenic plants found in Scandinavia. Others think it was just psychological conditioning or mental illness. Either way, imagine facing a drug-fueled maniac with an axe who thinks he's invincible. Yeah, you'd run too. The takeaway? Vikings didn't just raid villages, they did it while absolutely booted. Number 31. Mayans gave themselves enemas to get high. The Maya had many achievements: mathematics, astronomy, architecture. They also had ritual enemas, not for health, for hallucinogens. Priests would use ceramic syringes to inject alcohol, tobacco, and psychedelic substances directly into their rectums during religious ceremonies. Why? Faster absorption, stronger high, better connection to the gods. Mayan pottery literally depicts this process in graphic detail. They weren't messing around. One wrong move and you're meeting the gods a little sooner than planned. Lesson learned? Ancient spiritual practices were wild in ways you really don't want to Google. Number 32. Ancient Chinese foot binding started at age 4. For over 1,000 years, Chinese families would break their daughters' feet on purpose. Starting around age 4 or 5, girls' toes would be bent backward and bound tightly with cloth. The goal? 3-inch lotus feet considered beautiful and marriageable. The reality? Broken bones, infections, lifelong disability, and excruciating pain. Women couldn't walk properly, couldn't run, couldn't escape. It wasn't banned until 1912, and some elderly women still had bound feet into the 2000s. This wasn't ancient history, this was practically yesterday. The moral? Beauty standards have always been torture with better marketing. Number 33. Sparta threw weak babies off cliffs. Sparta's reputation as a warrior society wasn't just propaganda. When babies were born, elders would inspect them for physical defects. If the child was deemed too weak, sick, or deformed, they'd take that baby to Mount Taygetus and toss it into a chasm called the Apothete. No trial, no second opinion, just yeeted into oblivion. Recent archaeological evidence suggests this actually happened, though maybe not as systematically as legends claim. Still, the fact that they did it at all is nightmare fuel. Lesson? Sparta's tough love was just straight-up murder with a fitness theme. Number 34. The Romans used urine as mouthwash. Romans were obsessed with dental hygiene. Their solution? Gargling with human urine, specifically imported Portuguese urine, which was considered premium quality. The ammonia in urine does have antibacterial properties and can whiten teeth, so technically it worked. But it was so popular that Emperor Nero actually taxed public urinals. Yes, P-tax. Romans would collect their urine, age it like fine wine, then swish it around their mouths. Next time someone brags about natural remedies, remember this. Takeaway: modern toothpaste exists for a reason. Number 35. Ancient Egyptians used crocodile dung as contraception. Ancient Egypt, land of wisdom and wonder, right? Well, their birth control methods were absolutely revolting. Egyptian women would create pessaries, vaginal suppositories, made from crocodile dung mixed with fermented dough. The theory? The acidity would kill sperm. Did it work? Maybe. Was it worth the risk of infection, toxic shock, or just smelling like a swamp? Definitely not. They also tried honey and acacia leaves, which actually might have worked. But someone, somewhere, thought crocodile poop was the better option. The moral? Sometimes ancient wisdom is just ancient stupidity with good PR. Number 36. The Aztecs built skull towers. When the Spanish conquistadors arrived in Tenochtitlan in 1519, they discovered something horrifying. The Aztecs had constructed massive towers entirely from human skulls, called tzompantli. We're talking thousands of skulls, carefully arranged in neat rows. These weren't battle trophies. They were sacrificial victims, mostly prisoners and enslaved people, killed to appease the gods. Archaeologists recently found one tower containing over 650 skulls, including women and children. The Spanish were so terrified they literally wrote home about it. Lesson learned? Never complain about modern architecture again. So there you have it. 36 shocking facts about ancient civilizations that definitely didn't make it into your history textbook. From cannibalism to skull towers, from urine mouthwash to industrial-scale human sacrifice, our ancestors were equal parts brilliant and absolutely terrifying. History isn't neat or noble, it's messy, brutal, and stranger than any fiction. Which one shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments below. And remember, the next time someone says they wish they lived in ancient times, show them this list. Modern problems might suck, but at least nobody's trying to fix your headache by drilling a hole in your skull or prescribing crocodile poop for birth control. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and be grateful you live in an era with actual toothpaste.